be a screw, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Saitama Finds Mewtwo and Trains Him. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of the Crescent writer on fanfictionnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. City M. Residing somewhere in City M lies the strongest man in the world and the 6th-ranking hero of Class S, King. In the year before his official recruitment to Class S, it was said that he had defeated countless powerful monsters under the association's radar. So much so that they eagerly searched for him and gave him a certification for Class S on the spot. Over time, King had been respected among his peers as the strongest hero, and many looked up whenever disaster strikes against humanity. Looking at the heroic feats he's achieved and battles he faced, they would say that dragon threat-level monsters would dare to think twice before attempting to assault King at their own leisure and the scars he received. Unbeknownst to all of them, though, all feats and battle is false, as King is an average civilian who always finds himself at the wrong place and wrong time. And whenever he looked the other way or closed his eyes, he'd find himself standing before the monster that had been defeated by someone else. This resulted in a huge misunderstanding between him and the public, as they claimed that he defeated the monster while others had failed to do so. So far, no one has learned the truth due to King's incapability and fear of admitting his mistake before the association, and many who look up to him may turn against him in the worst way possible. Hence, he tries his best to not stand out too much and keeps his usual activities private until the day he can resign his position properly without trouble. You may all wonder why I'm revealing the truth about King so early. That's because Mew already knows, as seen below. Public Park. Once again, King is somehow approached by a monster who dares to challenge him in broad daylight. Though the monster has yet to make a move on him, it does propose a challenge, a fight to the death, as well as allow him with one free shot. King's signature move, King Engine, was in play and his gaze was fixated on the monster's eyes. There weren't any bystanders nearby, but there was one particular viewer hiding within the leaves of the tree. Mew, who had just arrived in this city, was observing this supposed battle, but found it odd that King hadn't done anything, unlike the other heroes it had seen in the past. What's more, Mew notices that King's signature move, King Engine, is just his heart beating rapidly and loudly out of negative emotions such as fear of dying by this monster's hand. It's rather normal for humans to fear monsters twice their size, but from appearance alone, King looked like he wasn't fazed by the monster's intimidating presence, and the latter just sweats as it questioned its choices on whether it was wise to fight King or not. In fact, the monster was afraid that he'd die swiftly once King landed his first free shot. But regardless of whether it'll die here or not, it was determined to keep that promise, as its pride of battle is on the line. As for King's thoughts, he was frantically panicking over the fact that once he threw the first attack, the monster will realize his weak upbringing, which will result in his demise at the hands of this monster. He had hoped that the monster would just turn tail and run without issue. But what kept it from leaving was its pride as a monster, and King becomes growingly concerned with his life. Mew would use its psychic powers to further peer through King's mind and uncover his past. That's when it learned that King was just a civilian like everyone else in this world. Then one day, King receives his scars over his left eye from a rampaging pink octopus monster and pleads for help. As it observes this memory further, Mew discovered that King had somehow met Saitama, as it recognized his voice from the get-go. When King's vision was clear in the memory, Mew noticed a much younger, hairier, and injured Saitama prior to the day he became bald and overwhelmingly strong. After Mew saw this memory, it dwelled further into his past and learned so much about King. A man who's deemed the strongest hero was only a man who was always in the wrong place and wrong time. But despite all his claimed feats and achievements, King never once boasted his rank or reputation to the public, as he preferred isolation over fame and glory. The reason why he uses his rank and reputation is to scare the monsters before they disturb him. And then he spends the rest of the day in his apartment playing his video games before sleeping in for the night. When he thinks about his games, he recalls that there was one he had been waiting for quite some time. Then he regrets not being able to play it before its scheduled release, which only made his heart beat faster than ever. As for the monster, it had reached its breaking point and decided to strike King down first rather than let him have the first blow. Before it even lands the first blow on King, the monster was soon restrained and King's eyes widened as the knuckles were a few inches away from his face. What comes next is King finding his arm moving by its own will, forming a fist, and throwing a punch of his own. Even though his fist didn't connect, there was a delayed effect in which the monster's chest started to form what looked like a large fist, and then it was knocked right off its feet and slid across the ground. Once King was able to move his body again, the only thing he did was lower his arm as he dumbfoundedly started at the monster he had beaten before his eyes. He was aware that he didn't possess the strength nor the power to stop, much less hurt the monster with a single attack. Before he could process this moment any further, he soon disappeared from the park along with Mew from its hiding spot. King's apartment. Based upon Mew's findings in King's memories, the two appeared in the center of the room. The latter was dumbstruck as he looked around and recognized his room. When he turned around, he flinched as he saw Mew floating before him. He just stares at it while Mew stares back. It inches in on him as well, and this causes King's heart to beat rapidly and loudly. Mew notices this and then uses a particular ability that soothes King's mind as well as his heart, as such a rapid heartbeat is considered bad for humans. King was utterly shocked upon feeling his mind calm and his heart slowed. It wasn't something that happens when he's near monsters, therefore he assumed that Mew had no ill intention towards him. While he's in the middle of processing his thoughts around this matter, Mew wandered around his room and spotted King's gaming console as well as scattered games he had on the floor. One game cover in particular caught Mew's eye, a game called Doki Doki Sisters. As soon as King noticed Mew, he widened his eyes as he saw it staring at the Doki Doki Sisters case. Without hesitation, he'd go to sweep it out of the floor and seemingly hide it inside the pocket of his hoodie. What comes after a few minutes is King's thoughts on the matter. Okay, calm down. No need to panic. Sure, you've got some weird monster in your room and saw your Doki Doki Sisters game. But there's no reason to panic and all. It's not like it understands how the game works. Unfortunately for him, Mew learns the game's features and story by peering through King's memories and learns that it's a date simulator game and it comes with various endings depending on the player's choice. But it wasn't the game's features and story that caught Mew's attention, but the game's characters, as they all come in different designs, appearances, and colors. One particular character resembled something that Mew almost recognized from its own world and uses transform out of pure curiosity rather than interest. When King gathers his thoughts together, he turns to Mew, only to see it in a different transformation than its original form. There was a long period of silence between him and Mew. Once that was over, King expresses one particular reaction in mind, EEA. Even though Mew transformed into a different monster, King almost mistook its transformation for a game character of the Doki Doki Sisters. From the hair to the body, it may as well as a creature that represents the dandier character of the game. WWW, what is going with this thing? Why in the world did it change? How did it even change in the first place? It's not possible. Mew reverts its transform, then switches it with a creature that represents a Derrideer character, again. Another creature that represents a Hayakasadeer character, stop. And another creature that not only represents a Kirideer, but also a female character from one of the fighting games he's played in the past. Enough already. A few minutes later, after a montage of creatures, Mew was flying and giggling in its original form, while King was lying face down on the floor defeated after being overwhelmed by Mew's constant change of appearance. At this point, he'll be experiencing weird dreams in his sleep tonight, as well as questioning his entire life in gaming. What interrupted the moment was when King's phone had started buzzing in his pocket. He'd pull it out of his pocket and check what it was. It turns out that the Heroes Association was calling him, sits in a leg-crossed position, and answers the call. Hello? King, we apologize for disturbing you at such a time. But we wish to inform you of a certain matter, an executive explained. Recently, there have been sightings of a small yet powerful creature appearing in several cities, and we have reason to believe that its next appearance is somewhere in City M. Small creature. Wait a minute, King slightly paled. Then he glanced at Mew. Are they talking about this thing here? It isn't accurate as we triangulated its recent sightings across multiple cities as best we could, and we hoped that you could cooperate with us in solving this matter, the executive stated. Ah. King mouthed while Mew senses something off in the city. Mew would open the sliding door without drawing King's attention and used its wide-range psychic abilities to locate the source of this trouble. That's when it saw a flying monster with ill intent toward the citizens below ground. We're all well aware that you have other matters that you intend to do besides this one. But this search is of utmost importance, for the sake of the association or perhaps the entire world, the executive explained. King gulped upon hearing this request. He was brimming with so much anxiety that his heart started to beat rather loudly. If he were to reveal that the creature they're looking for is here in his room, they'll come right for him and utterly disturb him from his normal life. He could just decline their request, but when they find out that he had seen Mew before declining their request, then the association will pressure him with several questions, and that'll interrupt his daily routine of being a shut-in or worse. Thus, he has no other choice but to accept this request. But before he could say a word, he felt a warm breeze in the room and turned to see his balcony door open and Mew is nowhere on sight. When he goes to the balcony, he spots a monster flying above the city and squints his eyes. That's when he saw one of Mew's forms jumping right above the monster and landing a strong dropkick which knocked the monster right off the sky. As soon as a dust cloud was formed, Mew seemingly left by reverting back to its original form and soaring through the sky. With its departure to City M, King had improvised a plausible solution to the executive's request. No need. I just saw it. Wait, it's already there. Where have you seen it? What did it do? The executive questioned. Can I submit a report instead? King asked. I want it to be accurate. Oh, of course, King. Every bit helps in our investigation, the executive responded. Once King hangs up the call, he goes to make a full report rather than explain it all through the phone. After he submitted his report, he would spend the rest of the day lazing around or playing games until nightfall. But as he played his game, he often pondered about the creatures it transformed into. With such resembling figures, expressions, and possible personalities, it somehow inspired an idea for an indie romance game with Mew's forms as references for the game's characters. City A. In the main headquarters of the Heroes Association, a quick meeting had occurred after King submitted a full report on his encounter with Mew. Even though it was short compared to the other heroes, some of the details were noteworthy as King listed a few details of Mew's power. The one that drew their attention the most was Mew's ability to control the mental states of individuals through psychic powers. They deemed this power to be so great that the infamous King Engine was calmed by a creature that did not fear the strongest hero in the world. Such a report baffled the executives and staff of the association so much that it urged them to enlist more heroes to aid in the search. As long as the sightings and encounters are authentic to report, they will mark the locations and accurately triangulate the location where it rests. When the report reached the ears of Class's heroes, there were a few notable reactions. Tank Top Master had informed his faction, the Tank Topper Army, to double their efforts in the search. Flashly Flash relentlessly continues his search on certain environments inhabited by animals. Drive Knight agrees with the search but keeps his progress secret for personal reasons. Zombieman admitted that searching for this creature will be most difficult but will often try whenever he has the time to do so. Even Metal Knight, who often focuses on developing advanced weapons and technology, finds himself invested in searching for this creature by using state-of-the-art surveillance technology to catch sightings of Mew. However, he rarely sends his reports since he primarily focuses on technological advancement than anything. But the most noteworthy of all reactions was Tatsumaki, who expresses utter annoyance by Mew's elusive nature. Despite using her psychic powers to their fullest extent, she was unable to trace its psychic signature despite it being a psychic creature. It's as if this creature has the ability to turn itself invisible from advanced technology to strong psychic powers. However, Tatsumaki doesn't express any hatred towards the creature, just pure annoyance as the search was proven to be quite difficult to handle. As for the class's heroes that have managed to encounter this creature, they remain aware of the search and report their findings should they meet it again. The most recent was Metal Bat, who submitted details he collected from his sister. To think that it slipped before King could do anything, bespectacled worker remarked, as he stood behind his fellow co-worker. It is truly a challenge that no one could pull off. Indeed, bearded worker remarked, but there is something we did learn from its actions. Whenever it's in a different city, it often transforms into powerful creatures and defeats monsters from tiger-level threats to demon-level threats, all while keeping civilians safe from harm. It may as well be safe to say that this creature protects humans rather than attack them, Z-branch operator remarked. If only we knew more of this creature, the spectacled workers said before all three of them continued their job in the association. For there's more pressing matters than Mew's appearance in City M. City Z. As Mew makes its way back to Saitama's apartment, it stops to notice something off in one of the abandoned areas. When it descends to a rooftop, it is eyeing two particular buildings that were symmetrically destroyed, and there are 4 heroes present as they're stunned by what they're staring at before their very eyes. Rather than approach these 4 heroes, Mew teleports behind them and eavesdrop on their conversation. Holy crap, what is this? What kind of monster could cause such violence? I'd hate to face off against this thing. Hey, what this? A hero bends down and picks up what appears to be a seaweed. Is it part of the monster that Spring Mustachio fought? There may have been a territorial dispute. There's definitely something here. That might be true, or what? Maybe it's that creature, the one everyone's talking about. I doubt it. If the creature were here, the hero who picked the seaweed stood up straight as he turned to the 3, it wouldn't do something this destructive. I guess you're right. Should we get out of here? We might run into this monster since it may be roaming around this area. All 4 heroes agreed to this decision and made their way out of the abandoned area of City Z. Unbeknownst to them, Mew was floating a few inches behind them and stared at the destruction. When one of the heroes mentioned territorial disputes between monsters, Mew decided to use its psychic powers to locate any living creature on the surface and managed to find it somewhere far from the hero's location. Mew then flew towards the source, but its departure didn't go unnoticed as one of the heroes turned around and he felt the slight breeze. What is it? That hero was silent for a time, then he turned away after dismissing the matter. It's probably nothing. Mew continues to fly towards the source, and not only did it sense its presence, but only its emotions as it felt anguish over something. Upon arrival, it finds a monster with a half piece of seaweed on its head. When Mew approached it, its own shadow loomed over the monster. When noticed, the monster turned its head towards Mew and looked rather confused as they stared at each other. With Mew's psychic, it learns of its encounter with Saitama, who defeated it with a controlled but powerful punch. Once it was no longer a threat, it just ran rather than fight him. Mew showed sympathy for this monster. In fact, it decided to use its power to resuscitate the seaweed on its head. Moments later, it was now long once more, and the same was said for the other seaweed that's grown small on sections of its head. This monster soon felt the length of its seaweed hair and examined the long and grown one of the bunch. When it looked up to Mew, it saw it giggling before inching in with a gentle smile on its face. It doesn't know what Mew wants or needs from it. But what it does know is that it's not here to cause any harm, and that was a reassuring feeling. Saitama's apartment. Saitama and Genos were in the middle of a conversation where the latter stated that he cleaned the holes near the apartment, which the former thanked. Genos then revealed that Saitama's rank had gone up after he apprehended Speed-O Sound Sonic for endangering lives by causing so much destruction with his explosive shurikens. Saitama then asked if Genos made any progress in his rank. The cyborg says that he didn't, and Saitama comments that his disciple still has a lot of ways to go. What changed the topic was when Genos mentioned that he's ranked #6 in popularity, which caused Saitama to spew his tea, pound his hands against the table, and hastily ask why. Genos just reads the opinions he received from his supposed fans, and Saitama remarked on how calm he was despite reading such comments. However, Genos doesn't mind the comments he receives as they revolve around his photo, not his combat ability, which makes it irrelevant to him. Saitama bluntly understands the cyborg's dense personality. while the latter continues to read the other opinions he received from his fans until his master tells him to stop. Once nightfall comes around, Saitama and Genos finish dinner, and the latter is in the middle of cleaning the dishes. After he finished cleaning and drying the entire sink, he noticed something peculiar and began with a question. "Sensei, that creature hasn't returned yet." "Really? Now that I think about it, it hasn't come back since this evening," Saitama remarked. "Shall I go out there and search for it?" Genos inquired. "No need," Saitama replied. "I mean, it does act like a cat at times, so I'm pretty sure it'll come back tomorrow or the day after that." "Are you certain? What if it was captured?" Genos said. "It may be endangered if we let it be out there." "Genos, you recall that time when we left that lab or whatever for the supermarket, right?" Saitama questioned. "I remember that moment quite clearly." "Why?" Genos replied, then gasped when he realized something important at that moment. When they were running through the forests, they saw Mew ahead of them despite being left behind in the House of Evolution's underground laboratory. He then recalled that Mew possesses a power that allows it and them to teleport from the forest to the city square with a few minutes to spare. Not to mention that Mew possesses immense psychic powers that withstood one of his attacks when he sparred with his master at that one time. With this info in mind, Genos closed his eyes and accepted Saitama's judgment. "I understand. In that case, I will stop asking irrelevant questions." Saitama, on the other hand, just lay on his bed, picked his nose, and glanced at his balcony door where he first met Mew. He then averts his glance away from the balcony and has one particular thought in mind. "I think it'll be fine out there." City Z. It's been a few days since Mew hasn't returned to the apartment. Genos constantly marks the days of it, while Saitama remains unworried by its absence. Genos soon received an urgent call from the association as he finished handling the dishes and informed Saitama that he'd be going to the branch office in City Z. Saitama jokingly remarked that Genos was going to get fired, though such a thing wouldn't happen considering that he holds a position in Class S. But Saitama wouldn't know that due to its irrelevance in his opinion. As Genos left the apartment, he pondered to him about a certain matter. That creature hasn't returned for the past few days. Something bad must have happened to it. Though his priorities are often set towards Saitama alone, Mew is considered a powerful creature that even some classes heroes admitted that they'll have a hard time fighting in a one-on-one fight. If it were captured by an organization similar to the former House of Evolution, then there's no telling what it'll achieve in studying its power. It may as well become a threat that Saitama alone can handle. City Z Heroes Association Building. As soon as Genos entered the building, he was recognized by another class hero who had received the message from the association. He may appear to be an old man, but he's one of the top 3 heroes holding the rank Class S. This was Bang, also known as Silver Fang, master of Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist. The two conversed with one another, and then Bang decided to brief Genos of the problem. There was a meteor that shifted from its original course and is now hurling towards Earth. The threat level is Dragon, and the meteor's impact will obliterate City Z along with everyone in it. Something that alarmed Genos. Bang further revealed that the meteor had 35 minutes before impact. He also remarked that the citizens of City Z will surely panic after the announcement at the 30-minute mark. Genos asked whether Bang would evacuate like the rest of the civilians. However, Bang refuses as he doesn't want to abandon the dojo he has built for generations. He then made an attempt to impress Genos by showing off his signature martial arts. However, the cyborg had left rather wasted time in the branch office. Soaring across the skies of City Z, Genos has decided to use his doctor's newest invention to stop the meteor rather than test it against Saitama. Upon activation, the case he brought launches itself away from Genos' hand, and then it transforms into an upgraded model of his arm cannons. He then merges with these arm cannons and lands on a rooftop. Just as Bang refuses to leave for his dojo, Genos refuses to leave without Saitama. He also calculated that the meteor will most likely destroy neighboring cities as well. Thus, he decided to take a go at it and try to stop the meteor. But before he does anything, he spots another class's hero soaring across the skies and recognizes him as Bafoy. The latter recognizes the former as well. After some analysis of the hero, Genos asked for Metal Knight's aid. The latter refused as his reason for handling the meteor was to test out his newest weapon. Genos tries to reason with him by stating that he'll die as well. Bafoy reaffirmed that his presence in City Z is via a control droid. He also stated that heroes don't call each other by their real name, but by their hero name, which is Metal Knight. Once the latter ends their chat, Genos goes on top of a tall building and readies his arm cannon. But Metal Knight engages the target first by firing a barrage of missiles at it. Genos hesitated, then powered his arm cannon down as he risked hitting Metal Knight's missiles. Several moments later, all of Metal Knight's missiles hit their intended target and engulfed the skies with black smoke. Genos was dumbstruck by such destructive power and then remarked that Metal Knight is a dangerous hero, one that he must be wary of. A few seconds later, the black smoke was cleared as the meteor still continued its descent and remained intact despite Metal Knight's arsenal. Genos analyzed the meteor's estimated impact and plans on powering up his arm cannon once more. But he doubted himself as a full-power blast of his arm cannon wouldn't destroy, much less slow down, the meteor compared to Metal Knight's superior firepower. Before he can act or doubt any further, Bang appears from behind and tells him to calm down before advising him that he's too young to think about failure. He also stated that the best course of action is to muddle through when cornered. Genos pondered about Bang's advice, but reminding himself of Saitama had caused him to act otherwise as he ripped his jacket and opened his chest plate. He then pulled his core out of his chest and inserted it into his arm cannon. He then charges it above its maximum output and then gives everything he has got against the meteor. He would hit his mark and keep firing until his core gave out till the end. Genos remarked that it wasn't working and Bang suddenly exclaimed that the meteor is being pushed back. But this turns out to be false as it was nothing more but his imagination and Genos yells at him for getting his hopes up. Once Genos' core has reached its limit, he goes to his knees and his core just sparks from wasting it all against the meteor. Genos revealed that there were only seconds before impact and advised Bang that he should leave while he could. As Bang stares at the meteor, a voice is soon heard from behind. "Hey, old guy, do you mind leaving this to us?" Bang turns and he widens his eyes at the sight before him. There was Saitama, wearing his signature outfit, a green-haired girl standing beside him, and a giant robot floating before them. "Who are you all supposed to be?" Bang questioned. "We're heroes," Saitama revealed in the heat of the moment. The giant robot glances at the meteor, while Genos turns an eye upon recognizing his master's voice. "Go," Saitama instructed, and the giant robot seemingly acted upon his request. It launched its thrusters and reached the meteor in mere seconds before it even hit City Z. Once it grasps the center of the meteor, it further unleashes its thrusters in full power and attempts to slow its descent rather than destroy it in one shot. Bang was awestruck as this giant robot was actually slowing the meteor's descent compared to Genos' and Metal Knight's attempt. Once the meteor's momentum had decreased, it was Saitama's turn to act as he jumped high from the rooftop and towards the meteor. The giant robot disengages its thrusters and lets Saitama do the rest as he destroys the meteor in just one punch. Moments later, the meteor shatters into several fragments and crashes across the city, destroying every street and building upon impact. The building where the others are standing was collapsing, and Bang used his martial arts to destroy some of the meteor's fragments that would have hit Genos. What comes next is their evacuation, which is where the giant robot comes in for the save as it makes its way towards them with incredible speed. It grabbed Genos, Bang, and the green-haired girl and soared through this destruction. It also used two of its thrusters like cannons to destroy fragments that would potentially obstruct their escape. After they've arrived to safety, the giant robot slows down and drops off the three on a rooftop that's safe from this meteor shower. Moments later, the giant robot emits a glow and it soon reveals itself to be none other than Mew, who floats around the three and expresses an enthusiastic behavior. Bang, on the other hand, has a particular thought in mind. So this is the rumored creature that the heads of the association spoke of. It's truly remarkable that it aided us against the meteor as well as our escape in the city. "Hey, are you all right by any chance?" the green-haired girl asked directly to Genos. "You look like you're about to pass out." "I'll be fine. Once I return to Dr. Cusino for repairs, I'll be better than I was before," Genos assured. But I must ask who you are, and what is your affiliation with my sensei? My affiliation? If you're talking about how I'm related to that bald guy, you could say we fought once before, the green-haired girl revealed. But as for Mew here, I'm basically its new friend. You can call me Kombu if you like. Mew examines Genos via his core, and then it assumes a transformation that's large and fuming with electricity. It then discharges some power into Genos' core and charges it up in a matter of minutes. Genos stands up to his feet and Mew reverts back to its original form. The latter giggles and then circles around Genos before heading back to City Z after the meteor fragments have stopped raining down on City Z. Where is that creature off to? Bang inquired. It plans on collecting the meteor fragments, Kombu revealed. I don't know why, but it'll probably be back after it's done. If you don't mind me asking, but what is your relationship with this creature? Bang questioned. You look human, yet you claim to be its friend. Oh, you mean this body of mine? Kombu inquired. You could say it's a special case, but I won't reveal its secrets. Bang had become curious about this matter. When Kombu mentioned her body being a special case, he had his assumptions on this matter. He could report this to the association, but today's circumstances don't seem right at the time being. He would withhold his report to the association, but would conduct his own personal investigation to study the hero who shattered the meteor and the outworldly creature. A few days later. In Saitama's apartment, everyone was present. However, Saitama had let Kombu in as a visitor and Mew's friend. However, she said that she'll be living a few rooms apart as she doesn't want to live near or in the same space as him. Mew is seen floating in between her and Genos and watches today's news about City Z collateral damage from the meteor. If only the association had called you instead of me. If you have worked with Metal Knight, the damage could have been minimized, Genos stated. But that Metal Knight guy wasn't interested in helping, right? Saitama remarked. So stop worrying about it. I think we kept the damage to a minimum. After all, no one died. Mew said in confirmation since it used its psychic powers to double-check the entire city for survivors left behind in the evacuation. Genos soon ponders to himself about the circumstances after Saitama destroys the meteor. He wouldn't be surprised if the people who hear his deed will praise him as a man of courage. However, he's aware that some people will hold Saitama responsible for the partial destruction of City Z. Genos decided to not tell him of this, and then a question from his sensei was asked. By the way, do you think we moved up in the ranking? Yes, we did, Genos replied. I went from classes rank 17 to 16, and Metal Knight went from classes rank 7 to 6. Sensei, you shot up from class C 342 to 5. Saitama was dumbstruck by this, while Mew and Kombu just watched what followed. 342 to 5? What the hell? That's crazy. Genos then went on to explain that it wasn't surprising since his sensei's performance was worthy of class up or even classes due to the meteor being labeled as a dragon threat level disaster. He also claimed that if there wasn't any damage to City Z, Saitama would surely reach class S rank 5. However, he thinks that the Heroes Association saw Metal Knight and him playing a bigger role in stopping the meteor. Saitama then asked about the threat levels that the association uses to identify certain incidents. He also asks if they're important, to which the cyborg confirms their importance as there are 5 types of threat levels: wolf, tiger, demon, dragon, and god. As Saitama looked at the chart provided by Genos, a certain question came to mind. Now that you've said all this, Saitama turns to Mew. What threat level will they label you as? Mew mouthed in confusion. The association hasn't actually decided on this creature's threat level. But if I were to make an assumption, perhaps they'll label it as a dragon-level threat, Genos assumed, perhaps more with its endless transformations. After that, Genos continues with the usual discussion about the association's threat levels, then Saitama goes to say if the heroes run, then who's left to help? Genos then went on writing several pages despite Saitama's confusion. Then the latter decided to go out, though he told Genos to stay behind since a class's hero might get all the credit as Saitama. Once he's out, Kombu stands as well. Well, I'd be getting settled in living here. I'll see you around. Before you go, I have a question, Genos inquired, and Kombu turned to him. When you mentioned the meteor fragments the other day, did this creature do something to them? The report has confirmed the destruction of City Z, but they have yet to find a single meteor fragment. Oh, those things? Mew said that it collected the meteor fragments for something it wanted to do, nothing more, Kombu revealed while Mew floated next to her. Said, "Do you perhaps understand it?" Genos inquired. "Kinda like that," Kombu replied, then left the room afterward. Mew doesn't follow her. Instead, it remains in the room while Genos stares at it as it goes to the balcony. With one particular thought in mind, just what did it do with the meteor fragments? A few minutes later. While Mew was seemingly resting on the balcony, it felt an upsurge of negative emotions via its psychic powers and floated in the air. Moments later, it goes to investigate while Genos stood from his chair and watched it go. I must have felt something is off. Perhaps I should check on Saitama-sensei as well. Genos leaves the apartment via the door and goes straight for City Z. Somewhere in City Z. Mew arrives at the location and witnesses the citizens of City Z chanting at Saitama to give up. Mew learns that Saitama was blamed for City Z's destruction. The one who accused him was a pair of heroes like him, Tank Top Tiger and Tank Top Black Hole. It also learned that the reason why they went against him was because they wanted to crush him for cheating his way up to Class C Rank 5. But before they do it physically, they want to break him spiritually first by having the crowd against him. Once they see their target completely down to their lowest, that's where they'll jump in and do the beating. Though this sort of action is considered selfish and malicious, Mew doesn't interfere as Saitama seems uninterested in handling this sort of problem. Nor is he affected by their chanting when it came to the Tank Top brothers confronting Saitama head-on. Tank Top Tiger was the first to charge right in, only to be swatted away with a single controlled punch. Tank Top Black Hole attempted to crush him with his fingers, but would clutch in between Tank Top Black Hole's fingers and grasp onto them rather hard despite Saitama's controlled strength. Tank Top Black Hole immediately gave up, pleaded for Saitama to release him, and went as far as to apologize for his false accusation towards Saitama. What comes next is something from Saitama himself. "I'm the one who smashed that big meteor. Anyone with a complaint, let's hear it, speak up." A civilian attempted to say his piece at Saitama, only for the latter to cut him off as he yelled his own piece by stating why should he care about their problems and told them all to tell it to the meteor. Then he went on to say that he doesn't do this hero biz for admiration or approval. He only does this because he wants to, and if they want to blame, then he lets them. With one misuse of insults, one civilian stated that Saitama was the bald one. In turn, it sets off one of Saitama's fuses. What concludes this affair is Genos, who convinced his sensei to leave with him for today. Mew just smiled, then went back to the apartment for the day. Meanwhile, on the screens of Bafoy's computer, he was examining the footage his remote-controlled droid managed to collect, and what played in a loop is the giant robot that managed to slow down the meteor in City Z. He also measured the power levels of this giant robot, and was stunned when the results were off the charts. Far superior to the weapons he previously developed in the past. He assumed that this giant robot was related to the creature from outer space. If proven true, he'll do what he can to collect a sample of this creature and study it thoroughly. If he can collect, replicate, and possibly weaponize even the smallest sample from it, it will be one of his greatest achievements and possibly become the world's strongest weapon ever known to the entire world. Days later. As usual, a monster appears out of nowhere in the streets of a random city and civilians in the vicinity are already panicking at the mere sight of it. It's the same incident as most monsters would do for their own goals and ambitions. But this time, the one that stops the monster before its rampage is none other than the reformed and altered monster, Kombu Infinity, who was present in the area. Her clothes consisted of a sweatshirt, jogging pants, and regular sneakers. She also wore a black headband with a lotus floor as she found it quite cute to wear. I get that every monster comes to a city wants to wreak havoc and all. Kombu prepares herself in combat by altering the structure of her hair, but this is quite ridiculous to see. Huh? The monster sets its sights on Kombu, who just stood there with arms crossed and hair waggling all over. A hero comes to challenge me. Not really, Kombu admitted. I'm just passing through this place to go home. Either way, you shall die for your... Before the monster could finish that sentence, Kombu had landed the first blow and then followed several other blows of her fist-shaped hair. They were as hard as steel as they effortlessly broke through the monster's defenses. Yet, Kombu moves them as light as a feather and as swiftly as the wind. Soon enough, the monster is knocked out with one final blow and falls to the road while Kombu pulls her hair back. "Well, that was easy," Kombu remarked. Before long, the civilians that were in the vicinity began to swarm around her and immediately showered her with praises for her heroism. Kombu feels rather uncomfortable by these people, but doesn't mind the praises since they slowly grow on her. As soon as the civilians finished praising her for her deed, Kombu insisted that they give her space as she has places to be. They complied with her request and continued to thank her as she left the area. Kombu hears the voice of Mew in her mind, then goes to an alleyway where there aren't many people. Once alone, Mew appears before her eyes. "I'll never get used to seeing you appear like." Mew just giggled and flew around her. "Did you come here to pick me up?" Kombu inquired, and Mew nodded before using teleportation without Kombu's consent. Their destination was another alleyway in City Z's ghost town, and Kombu sighed with her eyes closed. "And I certainly won't get used to you teleporting me this close to home." Mew giggles some more. Then they make their way back to the apartment. Along the way, Kombu reminiscences the days when Mew first found her. Days earlier. After Mew had restored Kombu's seaweed hair with its power, the former somehow introduced itself to the latter and understood its language quite well. Kombu assumed that Mew was a monster, but Mew stated that it wasn't a monster. It then led to Mew revealing its origin to Kombu as well as providing several spatial images that show a world different from hers. It was a baffling experience as she saw monsters beyond anything she had seen in this world and was shown a particular species that closely looked similar to her. It wasn't common for monsters to pop out of nowhere and wreak havoc wherever they go. What's truly baffling is that these monsters were found in urban cities vastly different than the cities in this world, and they weren't causing any trouble to anyone they come across. Some were accompanying the humans like fellow companions rather than pets. It almost felt like a dream come true, but the reality of this world is different as Kombu reminded herself that such a thing is impossible. Of course, Mew knew since it read her mind and studied the people of this world via its telepathy. And with Kombu's current form, she'll probably die the moment people see her. That's when a particular idea came into mind. Mew. "What is it?" Kombu inquired. "Mew, Mew Mew," Mew expressed, and Kombu widened her eyes. After some convincing, Kombu's life took a huge turn for the better. Days later. Mew is seen near a river with Kombu by its side. However, her entire appearance was drastically changed due to Mew's power. Her hair was no longer made out of Kombu seaweed, but out of natural human hair after Mew genetically altered her. As for her body, it was altered into that of a human girl, but her tangible hair was used to cover certain private parts since Kombu learned that humans don't walk out in the open naked. That aside, Mew began training her by doing a transformation of an amphibious creature. Though it remains passive in her training, Kombu noticed that Mew was stronger than it looked as every blow given by its attack was harder than the two heroes she had fought in the past. But fighting isn't the only thing she's taking lessons on. Mew had Kombu meditate to maintain and control the aura after the latter's modification. Some emotions and memories conflicted with Kombu's meditation, but Mew assured her that everything would be fine as long as she completed her training. Hence, Kombu was determined to complete her training rather than deter herself with her troubled past. Once their first round of training had come to pass, Kombu was taken to Saitama's apartment, and Mew's request was somehow translated thanks to Kombu's presence. He lent some of his old clothes to Kombu since she didn't have anything else to wear and told her about some shops that sold other kinds of clothes. Even though Kombu fears him, she reluctantly has him as a companion for those stores and purchases the necessary clothes for her to wear. The rest of the story goes to the incident with the meteor hurling down on City Z. Present. As Kombu returned to her apartment room, she either spent the rest of the day reading books or taking lessons with Mew whenever it felt like it. The latter, on the other hand, decided to wander outside rather than stay in one place. If she needed to eat or drink something, she would use her hair to get what she needed and bring it to her. Compared to her original hair, this one was much easier to control, came with thin and numerous strands, and was made to be light but durable. It's also quite flexible as she's able to shape her hair at will and maintain that shape for as long as she likes. It even made her smile knowing that she had grown strong because of her encounter with Mew. But one part of her mind is pondering on how Mew came to be this powerful and wondered why it came to this world in the first place. Even though she's able to understand Mew, she never asked that question in the first place. Thus, this thought became an objective and sought to find that answer regardless of whether Mew agreed or not. In the meantime, she soon hears a knock on her door and goes to answer it. When she opened the door, she was greeted by a particular class's hero. "Hello," Bang greeted. "Ah, hello," Kombu awkwardly greeted. "Do you need something?" "Nothing of the sort. Rather, I'd like to talk to you about an important matter," Bang said. "May I step inside your home?" "Sure, I guess," Kombu replied and let Bang inside her apartment. After Kombu served some green tea, which she learned from Mew and Saitama, Bang went straight to the point. "I would like to know of your relationship with that creature." "Creature, do you mean Mew by any chance?" Kombu inquired. "I do, young lady," Bang replied. "Not long ago, word of its appearances in multiple cities brought about a stir among heroes from Class C to Class S. Not only are the executives paying for its sightings, but they also wish to study its intentions as well as its powers. For no ordinary creature in the association has ever encountered such a creature. When I saw you alongside that creature, I figured that you'd have a connection, which is why I came to you, hoping that this old man may learn its secrets." Kombu pondered about it and felt indecisive about whether or not she would share that info with him. If she tells him that she was formerly a monster turned human, she has no idea about whether or not he'll believe her. Most importantly, she feels uncertain about whether this hero will kill her or not after she reveals the truth. Thus, some of her hair was prepared in case Bang made the first move on her. But such a move was unnecessary as he raised his hand and gave a firm gaze upon her eyes. "Calm yourself, young one. I have no intentions to fight you nor kill you for being a monster." "You knew?" Kombu inquired. "I've had my suspicions, but your expression towards my discussion gave it away," Bang revealed. "To be honest, I never would have imagined nor lived to see the day that a monster would willingly choose to be human." The thought was a bit unsettling, but she calmed down since she now knew that she stood no chance against him. By learning aura from Mew, she can tell just how much this old man has in him. "Now about my question," Bang reminded. "I won't tell you all of it," Kombu replied, "just what you need to know." With a simple nod, Kombu explained certain details regarding Mew and her encounter with it. It baffled Bang to know that something so small could grow into something so large and powerful. She even added in her training with Mew, and it puts a lot of interest in the old master. Then an idea finds its way into Bang's mind. "Everything you've said is quite interesting, but you wouldn't mind providing a demonstration." Bang then offered what appears to be the address of his dojo. "And feel free to invite that creature Mew over as well. I would love to see it in person." "Sure. I'll give it a shout when it comes back," Kombu agreed as she took the paper from his hand. "I shall be going now," Bang said. "Also, I invited Saitama into my dojo not long ago. I'm certain that he'll be there too." Kombu just widens her eyes a bit, then timidly responds with, "Why yeah, sure." As soon as Bang left the room, Kombu stared into the paper she was holding and pondered about going to his dojo. But when his words about Saitama going to his dojo echoed through her mind, she just crumpled the paper with one hand, used her hair to grab a trash bin, and threw it there before putting it back. If there's something she can't stand, it's being next to the person who tore her hair from her head. The following day, Kombu finds herself wandering around City Z. However, she is seen wearing a backpack. She wouldn't need such things since her hair is capable of flipping a car off the road easily. But the real reason for carrying a backpack was meant for Mew, who decided to sleep inside while Kombu carried it around. She wasn't concerned about sealing the backpack tightly since Mew explained that it could survive from the depths of the ocean to deep space. The places she visits consist of food vendors and a couple of shops. Sadly, she doesn't have any money since she neither has a job, and she doesn't want to ask some from Saitama due to her grudge against him. Thus, Kombu feels somewhat bummed that she couldn't buy anything. She may try to steal what she wants with her hair, but Mew wouldn't want that as it wanted her to be a good human. and such humans don't steal from others. With nothing to buy, she decided to head back to the apartment and spend the rest of the day in the room alone. But when she stopped by a sidewalk, she noticed a couple of kids running around and the light had yet to turn red. That's when one of those kids had their feet tipped from all that running and found himself falling onto the sidewalk with a car closing in on him. The mother cried out for her child, but Kombu reacted quickly as she grabbed the boy with her hair, lifted him over, and stopped the car's momentum. The people around her were immediately stunned, and the same applies to the boy she's holding in the air. But Kombu wouldn't mind the scorn since she knew people wouldn't accept her, so she handed the child back to her mother's arms and went on her way after the light turned green. But just as she reached the middle, she heard the boy's voice, "Thank you, Miss Hero." Kombu slightly stumbled in her step, then glanced at the boy. She saw a smile on his face while the rest remained stunned by what they saw. In response to the boy's thanks, she just turned away and waved the back of her hand. City Z apartment. As soon as she arrives at the apartment building, she finds Saitama and genos outside. She also found Bang accompanying them, and the latter approached her as soon as he saw. "It would seem that we meet again, though I often wonder why you didn't come yesterday." "I have my reasons," Kombu replied and momentarily shifted her eyes from Saitama to Bang. "I see. Well, it doesn't matter," Bang dismissed. "But should you come to my dojo with Saitama and genos here? They agreed to come after I've promised them some protein in their meals." Kombu trails off, but finds herself disturbed when her backpack starts fluttering. Moments later, the zippers open and Mew's head opens right out. This causes Bang and genos to express some level of surprise, while Saitama just blinked and blurted out, "You had it inside your bag like a cat?" "It wanted to sleep, so I carried Mew with me," Kombu said. "How convenient," Bang remarked, then walked to the side to get a good look at Mew. It just blinked at the old man, then the latter proceeded to chuckle as he felt no ill intent from this creature. Truly an interesting creature. "Mew?" Mew mouthed, hovered out of the bag, and flew in circles around Bang. The old man just huffed to himself with his eyes closed, then opened them as he stared at Kombu. "Now that I've seen this creature with my own eyes, it's safe to say that this one means no threat to anyone. However, I'd still like you to demonstrate what you were taught by this creature." "Mew?" Mew audibly muttered. "It's asking what I taught her," Kombu cited, which caught the men's interest. "You can understand it?" Bang inquired. "I do. It's probably because we're somewhat similar in race. But we haven't confirmed whether that's true or not," Kombu explained. "Then that makes things easier," Bang concluded as he turned to Mew. "Would you like to see my dojo? I'm quite eager to know the powers all heroes have seen in the past." Mew tilts its head to the opposite side, then lets out an enthusiastic response. "Mew." "Seriously?" Kombu asked in surprise. "What did it say?" genos inquired. "It said sure," Kombu said. Saitama sighed to himself since a part of him didn't want Mew to get mixed up with this old man. Genos was interested in learning more about Mew's powers, and Bang just smiled as he got 4 special guests in his dojo. Silverfang's dojo. As soon as they arrived at the location, Kombu was utterly stunned by the amount of stairs she needed to climb to reach Bang's dojo. Still, she and the others were able to reach the top and Mew just followed behind them. Upon reaching the dojo, Bang first wanted to show something to the 3. His top and only apprentice, Chiranko, was present and stacked several hard tiles on each side of his master. Once finished, Bang only needed to press the bottom of his hands on each stack and quickly break them all with a swift yet simple nudge of his hand. Kombu and Mew were thoroughly impressed, while Saitama and genos showed indifference at Bang's technique. Saitama even broke several tiles without issue or technique. What comes next is Bang proposing a card-based memory game. He demonstrates his swift and precise reflexes even before Chiranko can speak the first line. When Saitama took a turn, he just smacked his hands on the floor to make the cards fly and take the card before Chiranko could start the first sentence. That's when Bang proposed another game, and Saitama stated that it was just a game of rock, paper, scissors with rubber mallets and a plastic helmet. Kombu was unfamiliar with this game and Bang tried his best to maintain a calm composure. However, genos would volunteer to go first against Bang. The results led to the cyborg reaching a steaming mark on his head and Saitama taking over the next game. Kombu and Mew just watched the two as they went through several rounds of rock, paper, scissors. After 90+ rounds, Bang had yet to lose once and Saitama was raggedly panting with a red burning mark on his forehead. Kombu and Mew faced away as they giggled at Saitama's state. However, the next change that when Saitama wins against Bang and tries to take the rubber mallet. Though Bang had already worn the helmet on his head, it did not stop Saitama from grabbing the mallet and smashing it on Bang with all of his pent-up frustration. Bang was visibly alarmed by this and escaped while Saitama smashed the helmet so hard that it broke the helmet to nothing and smashed the dojo floorboards. Kombu's hair fluttered from the sheer force and expressed a stunned look while Mew was blown away for a bit, then it looked up to see the old master with his hands dug into the ceiling. "Wow, what kind of power is this?" Bang exclaimed. "That's not fair, you're not supposed to run away," Saitama yelled. After it had already been decided who the victor would be, Genos remarked. "That's not what the rules say though," Charanko yelled. "That's enough," Bang said as he jumped down. "It's my loss." Saitama asked for another challenge, but Bang refused as he didn't want an all-out fight. Genos questioned about some meat, and Bang said that he was always going to give it anyway. Then Bang goes on to give an encouraging conversation about Saitama going serious with the match, as well as mentioning how appealing martial arts is as well as its essence in life. Bang then asked if they were interested in attending his dojo, to which Saitama bluntly declined despite everything the old master had said. For Bang, he accepts Saitama's decisions rather than tempt him any further. What comes next is Bang's interest in Mew and Kombu. A few minutes later, after they went to the dojo's courtyard, the first one to provide a demonstration was Kombu. She's used her hair for multiple purposes and often shows some level of combat by turning certain strands of hair into fists or weapons. Once finished, she'd use the back of her hair to make a chair and sit on it with legs crossed to each other. "That's rather impressive," Bang remarked. "From utilization to sheer power, one might say you have an advantage against certain opponents great and small." "Thanks for the comment, Bang-san," Kombu thanked, and then Mew suddenly appeared by her side with a canned soda from the apartment. She grabbed the can with her hair and opened the can open. "Isn't that unhygienic?" Saitama bluntly questioned. "Not really," Kombu admitted. "You see, my hair isn't like other humans. Because I stretch and shorten the length of my hair whenever I want, and I don't suffer any hair loss since every strain is under my control." Kombu demonstrates this by lifting a few thin strains of her hand and slipping the can at the ends of those strains through the tab's hole. "That's pretty convenient. If you'd like, I can arrange a meeting with you and Dr. Cusino," Genos suggested with a phone close to his ear. "How about no?" Saitama remarked. "Then, what about that creature next? Mew, isn't it? Would you like to demonstrate your power, this old man?" Bang requested. "Mew," Mew responds and Kombu provides translation. It said sure thing. Mew then transforms into a blue bipedal dog and provides some level of martial art as well as the use of weapons for Bang's interest. Next, it transforms into a red bipedal bird and demonstrates fiery kicks that intrigue the old master. Another was a furry animal with the ends of its arms looking a lot like whips, and they were moving so quickly that Charanko remarked that he couldn't see them move while Bang expressed further interest. One transformation after another, Bang understood the immense potential this creature holds and graciously applauded Mew for such a well-worth demonstration. He then stated that the two are welcome in their dojo whenever they want. Thus, the day ends when the four leave the dojo, and with some meat they received from Bang. No one in the entire world has predicted this. When it happened, the people of the Heroes Association had planned to send a few surveillance drones and capture a particular fight in the skies. For the fight they're eager to witness was the fight against the strongest psychic, Tatsumaki, and the foreign creature, Mew. Earlier, after receiving a call about some rampaging monster in a random city, Tatsumaki agrees to its extermination due to her being nearby and soars her way toward the target. It took several minutes for her to get there, but she would complain about how bothersome this monster may turn out as well as how weak the other heroes may be if they aren't able to take care of such a monster. But in the middle of her flight, time appeared to have slowed down on her as she spotted something small and pink passing through the area. She slowly widened her eyes and flew in the opposite direction. As soon as that thing flew past the area, Tatsumaki immediately stopped and processed the creature she had seen moments ago. When the matter about a foreign creature from space wanders around Earth, she suddenly changes her priorities and conjures a large psychic barrier in the skies. She then waits for a while and only leaves after her barrier gets a reaction from a certain direction. Tatsumaki gains immediate interest and pulls her phone out. "Hey, it's me. I've changed my mind about that monster you all mentioned. Find someone else to deal with it." Tatsumaki saw. The call ends before a word is said, and then Tatsumaki flies at high speed. As soon as she arrived at that location, she hovered down and found herself face to face with Mew, who was in the middle of gazing at the barrier until it turned after it sensed her psychic energy. "You're a lot smaller than I thought you were," Tatsumaki remarked. "Mew?" Mew replied along with a small tilt of its head. Meanwhile, after Tatsumaki suddenly changed her priorities, her barrier soon caught the attention of the Heroes Association. They acted rather immediately and sent several surveillance drones to the designated area. In the meantime, their scanners were detecting one signature, which was none other than Tatsumaki, but through long-range imagery. They discovered that the strongest psychic hero of the association had confronted the foreign creature that was said to hold the power of numerous monsters, Mewtwo. This was a fight worth studying, and any means of communicating with Tatsumaki were a priority. But all attempts to call her have been futile as Tatsumaki ignored all their calls. Moments later, they detected high levels of psychic energy spiking and assumed that Tatsumaki engaged it in combat. Back to them. The first thing that Tatsumaki did was restrain Mew with her psychic energy. But what surprised her was that Mew managed to break the lock as well as fire a multicolor beam of psychic energy at her. Tatsumaki conjures up a barrier and blocks the oncoming attack. But when the beam dissipated, she saw an orb of dark energy hurled right at her. Upon impact, she finds herself knocked back as this orb was somehow affecting her psychic barrier. But in the end, she'd hold herself out after redirecting the orb elsewhere and looked all over the area. For Mew had seized the opportunity to hide within the clouds. She could use her psychic abilities to clear them all out at once, but she recalled that this creature had several abilities, unlike most monsters. Therefore, she had to think things through before acting. For this creature may prove unpredictable. But for her, she doesn't think so highly of it and focuses on tracing its presence with her psychic powers. She couldn't trace even the slightest amount of energy from this creature. It's almost like it just disappeared into thin air. Even if it could teleport as they say it would, she would have detected its location, even from the slightest hint of energy. Even after minutes of nothing, Tatsumaki sensed a hint of energy from behind, and it rapidly grew large in seconds. By the time she turned around, she was greeted by one of Mew's transformations, a long green monster that looked similar to a dragon. Tatsumaki had little time to react as the distance between her and Mew was short due to the immense speed of this monster. Her only option was defense as she conjured a strong barrier and met Mew's attack head-on. It was undeniably strong as Tatsumaki knocked from the area, she hovered to the barrier in a matter of seconds. She could even feel the impact and strain of her psychic energy. But she wasn't going to call it quits as she used her psychic powers to lift several rocks and hurl them at Mew. What it did was press onward and maneuver its way around multiple hurled rocks. Those that it can't avoid are obliterated when Mew dashes right through them. However, Tatsumaki simply knew that it would close in on her. So she let it before attempting to use her psychic powers to restrain it like she always does. But Mew somehow sensed what she was going to do and opened its mouth to conjure an attack. Tatsumaki was prepared for what was to come, but the moment Mew released its attack, she notices something off and uses her psychic powers to catch this attack instead of Mew. She'd shaped her psychic energy into a net and caught the attack. She's a bit dumbfounded by the force of this attack, and launching it back would take some level of effort to do so. Hence, she diverts it elsewhere and launches herself forward with the intent to capture it in a psychic bubble. Once the bubble was formed around Mew, she smirked at how easy it was. But Mew would revert to its original form and channel its psychic energy through Tatsumaki's bubble. This energy would channel its way back to Tatsumaki, and the latter sensed this before it reached her. Hence, she was forced to pop the bubble from Mew before it could retaliate by turning her psychic energy against herself. It looks like this thing knows more about this than I initially thought would, Tatsumaki remarked, but this didn't discourage her. Instead, it flared up her interest as she powered up and went on the full offensive. From lifting large rocks to forming psychic armor, she dashes right at Mew with the intent to not capture, but defeat it even if it means its mutual destruction. Mew, on the other hand, decides to play along and flies off at high speed. Tatsumaki gives chase and hurls a few large rocks to try and slow it down. However, this wouldn't work as Mew is small and fast for her to hit, and some of the rocks were caught and then sent back to Tatsumaki's way. She would press onward rather than slow down to give Mew an opportunity from a distance. As she managed to catch it, she used her psychic energy at its peak to conjure a small but indestructible bubble to catch Mew inside, then engulfed with the rocks that remained by her side. To ensure that Mew doesn't react quickly, Tatsumaki immediately went with her signature style, which revolves around her compressing the rocks and bubbles with immense pressure and then sending them back down to the ground with enough force to guarantee an instant kill. As soon as she heard the impact, she let a smirk crawl right up to her lips and descended with arms crossed as if she had won the battle. With the large barrier being redundant now, she'd dispel it and accept the obvious outcome of this battle by looking down on the small crater she made. To think that they say it's hard to find and catch. Guess I've proved them wrong. Normally, Tatsumaki would boast about herself being able to catch Mew, unlike the other heroes who have been said to have seen the creature. But recalling the fight she had with it just now and the struggles she had to go through in catching and diverting its attacks tell another story. Mew was indeed strong, and Tatsumaki respected it even after she killed it. Regardless, she'd brush this off with her eyes and use her psychic powers to pick up the rocks used to contain Mew and planned on collecting its corpse carefully for the Heroes Association. Honestly, if it had approached me first, then maybe this whole search and capture deal wouldn't have wasted everyone's. As soon as Tatsumaki opens her eyes, she suddenly finds Mew floating upside down and meters away from her face. She maintained a deadpan look and processed Mew's presence. It also caused her to inadvertently release the rocks she used to contain Mew and pay no attention to the sound or dust coming right at her. After she had processed the matter, she slowly raised her right hand and attempted to blast Mew away with her psychic powers. But Mew reacted quickly and teleported itself out of danger. When in the hell did that thing escape the bubble? I was certain that it wouldn't escape even after I crushed it down to dust, Tatsumaki exclaimed in her mind while keeping her guard up. There's no way it would have escaped that easily, unless... Thinking back at her actions, she presumed that the moment Mew hurled some rocks at her, it may have fooled her by conjuring a passable afterimage and hid within the clouds as she chased after the fake one. She may say it's impossible, but with Mew's powers being a mystery and today's battle with it, even she has to admit that Mew can do it all. But she wasn't going to back down just yet as she pinpoints Mew's next location and then soars towards the skies after she finds it. She did not conjure a barrier as it was considered unnecessary and focused on conjuring a bubble barrier around her. Mew, on the other hand, decided to not hold back due to how serious she looked and unleashed a barrage of dark orbs at Tatsumaki instead of one. She'd enforced the front of her barrier, but the power behind these orbs was somehow affecting her barrier as she saw several cracks forming rather quickly. To avoid these orbs from hitting her, she'd split her barrier like a fan. But that's when Mew closes the distance with extraordinary speed and inflicts a particular move that causes her powers to shut down and helplessly fall from the sky. What the? I can't use my powers. What did it do to me? Tatsumaki exclaimed as she flailed her arms around the sky and she fell fast from the air. At this height, it may prove fatal for her until her powers return. But before she could hit the ground, she soon found herself on something soft and bouncy. It had cushioned her body without injury and felt like she had landed on a very soft pillow. When she sat up, she saw that it was a pink bubble made out of thin psychic energy, and Mew would descend near her and then giggle as she stared with bewilderment in her eyes. Mew then popped the bubble and caused her to yelp as she hit the ground, then slowly stood up as she gazed at Mew flying around her in circles. A few moments later, Tatsumaki felt like her powers were coming back and confirmed this by looking down on her glowing hands. When she raises her head to Mew, it performs a mid-air flip before teleporting itself away from the air. Tatsumaki just stood there as she processed her encounter with Mew for the very first time. Then she gives off a close-eyed smirk before stating the following sentence. "You really are a special kind of creature, aren't you, little one?" She'd float right off the ground, then depart after saying one final sentence. "Since both of us were holding back, let's call this one draw." Satisfied with the outcome, Tatsumaki made her way back to the Heroes Association and submitted her report to the executives, even though she had sensed a few surveillance drones during her battle with Mew. City's in. After Mew returned, Kombu greeted it from the balcony, and then it explained its encounter with Tatsumaki. Though it didn't mention her name, Kombu seemed to understand the details and remarked, "That's quite a person, Mew. If I were to face her, I would have perished even with this power of yours." Mew replied as it agreed with Kombu's statement. Tatsumaki was indeed powerful, but if she were serious, it would have caused a catastrophe that may put this Earth at risk. Even if this world isn't the one Mew knows, it's still filled with humans, and it wouldn't go so far as to risk them in the crossfire. In the meantime, Mew decided to rest for the day while Kombu just remained in the room with it. Heroes Association. After receiving footage as well as Tatsumaki's report, the executives proceeded with today's meeting, and Mew was displayed rather largely unlike their previous meetings. To think that Tatsumaki of all heroes would struggle against something so small. And with all that power in its possession, I'm afraid that the only one who may stand a chance against such a creature is either King or perhaps Blast at the matter. But we are fortunate to know that this creature is quite benevolent, Sitch said. Had it not been for this nature, Earth would have succumbed to a catastrophe that we may not be able to control. But when will it remain benevolent? McCoy pressed with clasped fingers. There's a limit on how one can maintain such a nature. What if it turns on humanity and decides to go against us first? We'd be ill-prepared against such a threat. I'd normally agree, an executive with an artificial eye, but the heroes may tell another story, even if they approve the order for the creature's extermination, and odds of them succeeding are slim. They would press several questions on why we'd go after it despite showing little to no hostility towards it. And let's not forget about our sponsors. Most of them have wished for its immediate capture. Failure would lead to their disfavor and may pull their sponsorships back. McCoy grumbles to himself, but shrugs his shoulders since it can't be helped. After several more minutes of discussion, the topic soon changes as the image of Mew disappears from the screen. The creature aside, there is an important that we need to look upon. Another footage appeared on screen, and it showcased Kombu stopping a car in another angle. Upon replaying the footage, they witnessed her power and heroism, and it brought a few people talking. So a hero saved a child. What of it? An executive inquired, as if it wasn't important to begin with. A lot of heroes have done the same thing in the past, you know. That may be true, but this footage holds at least two vital information that we cannot ignore so lightly. Firstly, this person is not within our hero ranks, as none of our heroes from rank C to A matched her, Sitch reported. The second is that we've received information from Class A Golden Ball and Class A Spring Mustachio regarding this footage. And what did they say? Another executive inquired. Their words are, "There's no mistaking it. That girl was the monster that attacked us," Sitch cited, and it brought a lot of attention to the executives in the room. Are you certain that their testimonies are accurate? What if they've mistaken this girl for something else? But think about it. This girl isn't even part of our hero ranks. If her appearance, power, and location match with the Class A's report, then this person may be the monster they fought and lost in their reconnaissance mission. That may be true, but there is one question that has yet to be answered. The top question regarding this matter was one thing. How could she become human? Though they've proposed several possible answers, they weren't certain about any of them unless they've managed to find said answer from Kombu herself. With that, the meeting ends. Though the executives of the Heroes Association have failed to recognize a particular hero who had stopped a monster that rampaged in another city. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author the Crescent writer FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.